The rush to stock up pantries has made clear winners of firms that make and sell household necessities. Canned goods, rice, noodles, cleaning materials and toilet paper supplies were wiped out in store shelves as consumers prepared for longer home stays.
So there's a number of categories that are actually benefiting. On top of that, there's the obvious ones like health and well-being. So vitamins, etc., are really benefiting as well. In fact, when you look across the categories, there's a number of categories that probably feel a sense of guilt, but they're benefiting greatly out of the virus.
The Covid-19 outbreak has made homebodies out of consumers. As border restrictions and recommendations for social distancing urge people to stay at home, online shopping, online education, and working from home have become the new norm.
Consumers are changing the way that they view the world in terms of how I eat, drink, socialise, being entertained, whether it's via some of the new social platforms. I'm watching all my movies, my television, I'm shopping for clothes, my makeup, and I'm buying my groceries as well, all online.
Nielsen breaks down the consumer response to the virus in 6 phases. It starts with proactive health-minded and reactive health buying, then followed by the pantry preparation, quarantine living preparation, and restricted living, until they hit the phase living a new normal.
Quarantine living starts to bring a lot of panic into the markets, and it's get what I can when I can. And that's when online purchasing really starts to thrive. The final stage is the new norm, and that's where China is today. So consumers do get stuck in those 6 phases, and they probably won't ever go back to the way it was in the past.
In a March 2020 dipstick survey, Nielsen found that over 80% of consumers in Southeast Asia are concerned about getting infected by the coronavirus.
Consumers accordingly are changing their behaviours. They're less promotionally sensitive than they were in the past. The real aspect here that have benefited out of the coronavirus has been the omni-channel approach. So supermarkets and hypermarkets have had some of their best sales since the Lunar New Year ever. You know, they're 20 to 30% up in many cases on every week's average sales.
In the work arena, the pandemic has pushed firms to have their staff work from home. As remote working rises, business apps saw global downloads topping 62 million in mid-March, marking their biggest week ever, according to data from App Annie. Business communications provider Avaya has seen strong demand for its video conferencing platform.
We provide a service for our customers that we call Spaces that allows people to work from any location as long as they have an internet connection. You can do video, you can share content, and the last few months we've actually seen an increase of 700% in the utilization of this service.
The COVID-19 outbreak has pushed firms to examine their business continuity plans and their investments in telecommuting readiness.
The remote working is definitely going to become part of BCP planning. So not only do you have a plan for people to work from home, but do they have enough headsets? Do they have the right equipment to use? Do they have enough screens? Is the infrastructure set up for that?
As more staff work from home, business travel will likely decline, and companies could even reduce their office space take-up. Firms may even find an untapped workforce in those who normally just stay at home.
Think of caregivers, people who have, let's say, old parents at home or have young children who don't necessarily need to stay at home 100% of the time, but can't go to the office for 8 hours a day. So imagine contact center staff, but instead of going to the office to work there, you actually work from home.
While lockdowns have made economic downturns inevitable, Avaya says remote working has provided some cushion.
A lot of the business and industry that we see day to day is actually based on human interaction. Whether it's restaurants, it's hospitality, travel, healthcare, even to a certain level, education, all of it has to happen in person. So there is going to be a downturn. However, the flexibility in terms of remote solutions and companies offering these solutions, but also in the fact that productivity might not be as impacted due to these solutions. So, you know, if this pandemic happened 20 years ago, the solutions are not in place, the infrastructure is not in place, I think the downturn would have been a lot more severe.
New business models in the work-from-home space have further room to grow, some experts say.
The mother of invention often is a crisis, right? So we will see potentially more innovation in that space. In global equity markets, in most countries, it is pharma stocks and telecom stocks and these sort of work-from-home stocks that are actually outperforming in most countries.
The Covid-19 pandemic came at a time when markets were at all-time highs, exposing imbalances and how investors have been complacent.
Investing is always about risk-taking and you get compensated for taking the risk. And maybe the risk was mispriced, partly because of the belief that whenever there's a problem, central banks will step in. But now, as the coronavirus issue has shown us, it's a humanitarian crisis, first of all. It's not something that cheaper money can fix. Cheaper money can tide people over, but it doesn't solve the underlying issues. And that's really the key realization why potentially people have more risk in their portfolios than they're really aware of.
As the pandemic leads to firms potentially closing shop, it will be best for investors to take a more holistic approach to financial planning.
Debt holders potentially could do better than equity holders. Because if you think about it, because with so much stimulus and all this sort of political debate about bailouts, I think there's a risk that equity holders will have to carry the risk. And that risk exactly is that equities can go to zero.
Large technology firms, gold and mining stocks will likely continue to do well, experts say. And in the end, there could be a return to some of the investment basics.
It will be more, in my opinion, a stock pickers market. Because if you think about the last couple of years, we're mostly driven by ETF investing, right? Large cap passive investment strategies. Stock picking didn't really matter that much. Going forward, after this coronavirus crisis is over, I think increasingly we will come back to the good old days where actually security stock picking will potentially make much more of a difference.